you floated the idea, I forget where, of pivoting for your next book towards maybe writing about postmodernism, which is a set of ideas almost the opposite of Ayn Rand's philosophy. So can you maybe explain your curiosity about, first of all, spaces of ideas, but maybe postmodernism?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the broadest sense, what I'm interested in, kind of two dimensions that guide me in doing intellectual history. One is what I talked about, like how does an idea go from a book, an elite space, out to more popular dimensions? Like how does that happen? What happens to the idea along the way? How is it distorted or changed? And the other is just search for meaning in sort of a post-Christian era or a secular era. Like what are people coming up with? And I think to replace that void in their religious or spiritual lives. I think both Rand and Friedman offered these sort of alternatives, right? Objectivism, quasi-rationalist religion. People take economics as a theory of the world that you can almost believe in it, right? It can almost take that place. And in both cases, how do those ideas travel? When I think about postmodernism, it first struck me, if you read the original postmodern thinkers, it's really tough going. I mean, I make my students do it and they suffer. I think they see it's worthwhile, but it's no fun to read Derrida. But somehow it's trickled down into how do we go from like Derrida to Tumblr?
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of realized like, oh, this has happened with postmodernism. It's followed the same path, that say from Milton Friedman's economic theory to, free to choose on YouTube. We've had a similar path of, high French theory down to Tumblr and, I, sexually identify as an attack helicopter or whatever it may be, and so that was really interesting. And then I also thought, well, at the same time, this is clearly a structure of meaning. And I actually think it's followed the same path of objectivism, which is turning into its opposite, like distilled down and then turning into its opposite. So if objectivism was a group of people who considered themselves individualists who ended up deeply conforming to the dictates of a charismatic leader, postmodernism started about disrupting binaries. That was, we're going to be fluid. We're going to go beyond the border. We're going to disrupt the binary. And it's devolved in its popular forms to the reinscribing of many different binaries. Oppressor and oppressed, has become this like paradigmatic set of glasses you put on to understand the world. So I think the dynamics are very, very similar. So I think it's something in the traffic of the idea from its pure form to its popular form, and then how it gets politicized or mobilized in different ways. And behind it all, I think, is this human longing for meaning and the inadequacy of the traditional ways that need was met at this point in time.
By the way, that going from pure form to popular form, I remember, this might be before the internet, but when I was in college reading Derrida and Foucault and like not knowing context at all, it was just interesting. All right, this is like I'm able to read pure encapsulations of an idea and just kind of like, oh, all right, well, that person believes that. And you just kind of hold it. But then you realize if you actually take the pure form of that idea and then it creates a community around it, you realize like what that actually becomes.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, no, I don't. That's not. Although I do consider myself sexually an attack helicopter. That's it. Identify sexually. Yeah, it's beautiful.